Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We have just had a 4.2 X-class flare blast off from the sun from exactly Earth direct. This was from our favorite sunspot group 4366, and this was an impulsive solar flare, meaning there was no coronal mass ejection launched from this, and in fact that has been the case for all the X-class flares and M-class flares thus far, the X1, the X1.8, and X2.8, X1.6, and now this X4.2 flare. We did have a coronal mass ejection launch off from that X8.1 solar flare, a massive event, but the coronal mass ejection was not equally as impressive, though that is expected to start impacting Earth around 1900 Universal Time on the 5th of February, and then it looks like peak plasma density will be reached at 1400 Universal Time on the 6th of February. This is at least according to the NOAA space weather model. It's not that fast of a coronal mass ejection, coming at 400 kilometers per second or so. It's not exactly hitting Earth squarely, though it looks like a pretty good clip. So right now the estimate is for G1 geomagnetic storming. From that is minor geomagnetic storming. The scale rating goes from G1 to G5. G5 is extreme. That is what we would expect from, let's say, a Carrington event. This is not that. I do think though that we're looking more at like a G2 geomagnetic storm, or even potentially G3. I think it's going to take people by surprise, because all these solar flares, though they haven't necessarily launched coronal mass ejections very clearly out towards space and basically towards us, that sort of activity in general increases the turbulence of the solar wind. So we are looking at, in general, more turbulent solar wind as a result of all these solar flares, dozens and dozens of strong M and X-class solar flares now. And well, you also add a coronal mass ejection on top of that, I think things are going to be awesome. I'm up here in Abisko, Sweden, and we are very excited to see some incredible aurora over the next couple days. I will take some footage of that, perhaps even be able to do a live stream for you, so make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on that. And again, G1 is the forecast, but I think we're probably looking at G2, G3. We do have some data that has come in from Solar Orbiter, which is currently in front of the Earth, in between the Sun and the Earth. And it's actually further off to the side than we are as it relates to this coronal mass ejection. And it picked up a shock at around 1700 Universal Time yesterday, and it jumped from a field strength of 17 to 33 nanotesla, which is overall, it jumped up 15 nanotesla. So that's quite strong. It was a fairly short-lived shock impact, but overall, Solar Orbiter is showing that something is coming our way, and that time frame of tomorrow around 1900 Universal Time on the 5th going all the way into the 6th looks accurate. So I think Europe is going to be in for a great show, and also North America as well. We see that with our view line forecast here provided by NOAA. It's centered more over North America, and we see that tonight's aurora forecast is not looking that spectacular, but tomorrow night is looking very, very nice. In other news, we just had a magnitude 6.1 earthquake strike the Kermadec Trench. This is the strongest earthquake in 7 days. It was also quite deep at 184 kilometers down. There has been quite a lot of activity recently, some magnitude 5s, of course 4s, but just in general, one of the areas of highest seismic activity for the past couple weeks. But in general, seismic activity has been quite low if we talk about the overall amount of seismic energy release. But what we see is that earthquake activity is not homogeneous, meaning it's not always consistent across time, being perfectly equal with the seismic energy release and the earthquake magnitude, frequency, and so on. It goes through these rhythms and phases. So if you have this long quiet period, eventually that will get broken by a burst of seismic energy, usually defined by multiple magnitude 6s, 7s, and perhaps even earthquakes that are stronger than that. So the longer this overall quiet period continues, the more likely we are to encounter a sudden seismic burst. And I think personally that is coming in fairly soon, considering the planetary geometry that we have active with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on February 20th, because when we saw them nearly go conjunct just a couple weeks after that moment, when they were still very close together, we had that magnitude 8.8 megaquake. One data point there, but a big one, and we have very similar planetary geometry active this February. So I expect there to be at least probably one big earthquake, magnitude 7 or greater, this month. though the question is where. And well, perhaps with this deep 184-kilometer magnitude 6.1 Kermadec Trench, we are looking at north of New Zealand around Tonga. That could be the location of some big earthquake activity, though there are many other parts of the globe. We had a magnitude 5.9 and 5.2 that struck Burma, Myanmar. That was yesterday. That's quite big. That was near the site of the magnitude 7.7 back in March of 2025. So there's a lot of places around the globe that could be the site of a big earthquake. I will keep you up to date. Really key with forecasting earthquakes, which is difficult, is seeing where there's areas of anomalous activity perhaps right before a big one. So you really have to stay up to date with the channel to be privy to seeing that information, because it can be just a 24-hour or even 48 hours heads up before all of a sudden, boom shakalaka, you get that big earthquake. So that is your update for today. We do not have a radiation storm in effect, even though we've had all these X-class flares and M-class flares. Sunspot group 4366 has continued to grow bigger, but it's lost a little bit of density and complexity. So that seems to be just in general kind of reducing its activity a little bit, though we just did have this 4.2 X-class flare. So anything is possible now as it transits through the Earth center strike zone. It's going to be there for another day and a half or so. And even if it continues to rotate and get closer and closer to the limb, it is still possible that we get a big solar storm launch our way as a result. It just depends on the angle trajectory of that coronal mass ejection to launch. The fact that a big coronal mass ejection has not launched from that sunspot group means most of that plasma is still there. And if that magnetic shield, you could say, that's holding it all in finally breaks, let's say in the next 12, 24 hours, we could be looking at something very, very big. So that is a possibility. I will keep you up to date as I can here at the snow camp. I'm quite busy, but looking forward to providing you some amazing video and views of the aurora, potentially even a live stream if I can get that to work out. So please subscribe to the channel. Again, I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Thank you all so much for watching. Smash that like button, help the channel grow, and I'm wishing you all the best. Have a great day, and I'll see you all very soon.